So we're going to do a little landscape painting, and I am going to start with a little graded wash in my background to create my sky. So I have all my colors here on my palette, and I'm going to start with a dark blue. I have 2 shades of blue here. I'm going to start with nice dark blue. So I'm doing a nice little graded wash in my background. Not too much water. And I'm going to come down with it a little lighter. So I am actually going to use a lighter blue. You always need to add a little water to your paint, not a lot. I'm going to actually add a little white to my blue as well. When my background dries, then I will add in my clouds. Maybe I want to darken the top a little more. I'm going to let it dry a little bit. So now I am just going to use my pencil to add in a little area for my sand. And I'm going to start painting in my water. So I want to use a dark blue. I think I'm going to add a little bit of violet to my blue to darken it a little bit. And I'm going to start with my horizon line. So So notice that I'm using my paintbrush in a different direction. When I did the sky, I used my paintbrush back and forth this way. Now I'm actually using the edge of it this way because I think that it gives me a nice little brush stroke to make my water look a little more realistic, which is what I'm going for. A little touch of water. I'm going right into some light blue. And we want to get a nice little turquoisey looking color for our blue. So I'm going to add just a tip of Viridian green. And you get a beautiful kind of nice light color. So I will go back in some areas and add another layer. But for now, we're just going to stick with our nice little light blue. And it's like a graded wash as well, except that I'm using a little more lines because water moves, water doesn't stand still, especially the ocean with all the waves and such. So I like to use my brush strokes. That's a beautiful thing about painting, so that you could always use your brush strokes to create some movement. And I know I'm leaving out some spaces, but I'm going to go back in when it dries a little bit. So I'm going to mix a little more of that beautiful turquoisey blue. And for that I'm using some what we call Viridian green, one of my favorite colors. And you mix your Viridian green with some blue, and you get this beautiful kind of turquoise looking color. Reminds me of the waters in Trinbago. Don't worry about it being perfect. Don't worry about whose own is looking the way you want yours to look. Just be here. Just be here and enjoy the session. Painting is never about how it looks at the end. Yes, you want it to look a certain way, but it's more about just enjoying being here, holding a paintbrush in your hand, playing with paint. I like to say playing with paint because it should feel like that. It should feel fun. So I am going to let this dry a little bit. Right. So I'm going to wash out my paintbrush a little bit. And then I want to add a little darker blue up here. So since it's dry, I'm going to go back in with my blue. Maybe a little tip of purple. And I'm going to put a coat up here. A few lines up here. Just blend it in a little bit. That's all. That's all I need. I want to put in a little bit of clouds here, but I'm going to wait until it dries a little more. For now, I'm going to put in some sand. And you know, whenever the water is near to the sand, it's a little darker. So we'll darken here a little more. So I'm going to wash out my paintbrush. And sand has a lot of texture. So for this part, I'm going to use my round brush. I'm going to try to get at some white without getting blue into it, because I don't like to waste my paint. And I'm going to mix a little bit of my yellow ochre to create my nice sandy color. So now I'm going to paint in some sand. Remember, we're just trying out some of our brush strokes. So, don't stress about how you want it to look. You want to make sure that the paint for the water is dry, so in between painting your different things, you want to just kind of give it some drying time. When you need water, go in with your water, but you don't need a lot of water. Notice how I'm putting down the paint, because it's sand, so I want to get a little bit of texture on my sand. I want to darken my sand a little bit down here. So I added a little touch of a different shade of brown. I want to darken the sand a little bit. So I'm going to use a little darker brown, just so that by the water's edge, the sand has a little darker color, because it'll be like the wet sand. When everything dries, we will go in with our white to create our little sea foam. The nice thing about gouache is that it blends so beautifully. Even when it's dry, you can go back in. Soften the edges when you need to. So the best way to soften edges is to wash your brush, take off any excess paint, dry it on your paper towel or your art rag, and then just kind of go back in with a clean, slightly damp brush, and you get to blend in your little edges. See how it blends in? So now I want to add my clouds, and I am going to use pure white that I'm adding a little water to. Trying to blend it into the background a little bit. Right, so we have some little clouds. Maybe I could do another little one a little higher up. Nice. Gonna clean my brush. Now I'm going to add a little more of that color. I like that little turquoisey color to my ocean. Like a little second coat. So now I'm going to do my little stippling. I'm going to add a little greenery to my background. So I want to start with a dark green, and to darken my green, I'm actually going to mix my green into a little blue. So I'm going to start with my darker green. And just kind of give myself a little outline of where I want my green to be. So a little bit here. And then I will go and add a little bit up here. Just doing a little outline for where I want my green. So I'm going to start with my darkest green. And this technique I'm using, I would like to use a little stipple. Now I'm going to add a lighter green, middle green maybe. And now I'm going to add an even lighter green. So I'm going to use this, maybe a little yellow. Gonna darken underneath a little more. And for that, I'm gonna use a little of my dark brown over here with a little bit of green. Gonna let that dry. While that is drying, I am going to add a little bit of white to do my edges. So I want to keep my white nice and thick, not too watery. Hopefully it's not too watery. To add my sea foam. And last but not least, I'm gonna put in a coconut tree. So I'm gonna use, to start with, my nice light brown, maybe a little touch of yellow in my light brown. Remember, your coconut tree also has a little texture on the trunk, so you don't want to make it too smooth. Then I'm going to use my flat brush to do my palm branches. And I'm going to dry it a little bit and then go straight into my paint. And I'm going to start by just kind of mapping out where your branches will be. Remember, your branches don't have to be perfect, but you want them to look like a coconut tree. And I'm gonna add some lighter green to the edges. Because where the sunlight hits the branches, they'll have like a lighter green. So here we have a nice, simple landscape painting.